How old do you think this simple bolt and nut is? I myself thought it was 2,300 years old, but it actually dates back 2,500 years. A Greek scientist named Archytas came up with a screw-like design intended for moving water. Let's move a few years forward. In 250 BC, Archimedes used this spiral idea and built the first spiral water pump, which you could turn to lift water to a certain height. Note that up to this point, there were still no nuts and bolts involved. Only the spiral had been invented. Moving a few more years ahead. In 100 BC, carpenters got involved and used this spiral to create a nut and bolt mechanism that you could turn to crush grapes and make wine. The system was for having a good time. Carpenters did this for 1,500 years until we reached the 15th century, when metalworkers and blacksmiths using iron created the first handmade nuts and bolts used in military armor and clocks. There was no standard, no precision, and every nut and bolt was custom made. If one was lost, the whole device had to be rebuilt from scratch. In 1568, the first nut and bolt manufacturing machine was invented by Jacques Besson. It was a device that made them a bit more precisely, but each one was still custom made and lacked any standard. Even one bolt made by the machine would differ from the next one. From 1760 to 1800, a number of companies and individuals introduced more precise machines for manufacturing nuts and bolts. But there was still no standard. Something was missing in the middle of all this. A standard so that all nuts and bolts in the world would fit each other. It became the year 1800, and Henry Maudslay introduced his own specific standard for the nuts and bolts in his workshop so that the screws produced in his company would be identical. But this was not enough. A nut and bolt made in this company did not fit the next company's products. Before I tell you about the real revolution, please subscribe. In 1841, an English engineer named Joseph Whitworth declared a general standard for all nuts and bolts in the world, which meant that a screw made in Iran, or in America, or anywhere else in the world, would fit together, regardless of which company made it or what material was used. The threads and teeth had their own standard and all were interchangeable. Now, you write for me, what is the exact date of its invention? When the standard was understood, or when the thread was invented?